Friends, I didn't envision myself splurging on the Miss Dior Fall 2025 collection. This released, I believe, last month, and I was predicting what I would purchase, what I would leave behind, and lo and behold, I ended up just buying too much. I fell victim to having the shades, the products right in front of me, and had the pleasure of applying some of them thanks to Karen, who works at the Dior boutique in Soho, NYC, and she is just a delight. I always have to mention her because it's nice when you walk into a luxury space and you're treated well as a client and are comfortable in trying the product, seeing what works, what doesn't. But I didn't anticipate how much I would purchase. So I wanted to cover everything in more detail. If you want to see shorter content on these products, you can definitely head over to my YouTube shorts where I kind of do a quick application for each product and would like to have more extensive demos for this video. But if it's your first time here, hi, I'm Alicia. I love to review beauty, but also am working on adding more lifestyle content on my channel. So if any of that interests you, make sure you stick around, maybe like this video and consider subscribing at the end. In true Dior fashion and to stay on brand, I applied their stick foundation, specifically the Dior Forever Skin Perfect in 3.5N. I kind of figured out the best way for me to apply this stick where it doesn't look heavy on the skin, and that's to prep it first on back of hand and pick it up with a quite dense but fluffy brush. This is the Koiro Yoshiki, Master Yoshiki, excuse me, the 5-sided large kakishibu brush, which I think just buffs the product in beautifully where it doesn't look heavy on the skin. But now let's go into the first product. And if there's something you want to see before, you can head over to the timestamps down below just so you could see that product. Then you're like, that's enough, let me leave you. I understand. I wanted to go in order of makeup application. So we'll begin first with the Dior Forever Nude Matte Filter. I purchased this in the shade Light, and you might be wondering why, because why didn't you get 03 Medium, Alicia? And my apologies for not grabbing a photo of the swatch when I was in store, but medium was a little too deep for my under eyes, and I primarily rely on a filter powder like this to deliver that soft blurring effect, that poreless effect for under eyes and around my nose. Dior also released a universal radiant powder which looks white in pan, but it's a translucent pressed powder that has a little bit of a glimmer in there. I don't know how to quite describe what the actual ingredient is in the powder that has that effect. But it's not completely matte, so that's why I opted for the matte and the color, because I thought it was fitting for my under eyes. So with that said, it's probably time to pull you in a little closer for this demo. I don't have a lot of shine here under the eyes and around the nose, but just enough to see the effect the powder will have. And for you to check out the actual texture, and the color is quite lightweight. And let's say you were thinking about the Prism Libra pressed powder from Givenchy, or even the Reset Rebalancing powder from Prada Beauty, I would say the Dior is a lot thinner than the Givenchy. The Givenchy has more of a hybrid grip to it. You can see it's not as loose, and the Prada Beauty is definitely more of a cream to powder hybrid, right, with that mint tint to the look, although it does apply more translucent when on the skin. So for this, I would like to go in with a flat brush, lightly dusting under the eyes, and it does have fragrance. A lot of Dior beauty does, if not all of it, because Dior is a luxury brand and consistent with their fragrances and such. Although YSL beauty products don't have fragrance in them, but I know YSL does sell perfume as well. But you can see there is an instant mattifying effect, but I like how my skin feels. It's soft, it's not heavy, or it doesn't look overly powdered. And this is why I chose 02, because I wanted that brightening effect under the eyes. You probably have already seen my short where I demonstrated applying this powder all over the face. That does appear a little too light, because in that way, I think not great for 02 to deliver that task. That's probably better suited for 03. But I mainly don't wear pressed powder in that way. That's why I thought, let me get 02, as I mainly just rely on powder like this to kind of cut down the shine on the T-zone area. And you can see how lightweight it is under the eyes. And if you were to feel this in person, the skin feels incredibly soft. And I think again, a fitting shade for me to have more dimension on center of face, and the rest of my face kind of carry the bronzier, just more color heavy situations that I have on deck here. I think you want to see the Forever Blush Soft Filter Liquid Blush. I was just ecstatic at the fact that the Dior boutique carried these. Unfortunately, they didn't have 08 Oud, which is like that rusty, say it with me now, terracotta, or what looks to be a terracotta shade, but I opted for 07 Orchid and 02 Peony. Just by the looks of it, you can see from the frosted glass to indicate that this is a soft matte type of a situation. You got the doe foot applicator, and here is Orchid. I was surprised to see that Orchid had a more earthy quality about it, and you could look at the texture. What does this texture remind you of? I immediately thought of the cream blush product in a tube from Lisa Eldridge. That's exactly what I thought it felt like. It has like this moussey, kind of slurry texture to it, and Orchid is just, well, let me pull up what Dior says, or what they describe Orchid to be. And I don't believe these blushes are limited edition. They are slated to join the permanent line, which is fantastic. I'm on the site now and it is still waitlisted. Oh, for heaven's sake. 10 shades in all. Again, I have my eye on Oud and also Violet. Unfortunately, it's not giving me a shade description, but I would describe this as like a earthy peach. It has nice body to it, and you can see that it's a whipped airy texture that feels lightweight on the skin, at least behind a matte finish. Unfortunately, I do not see the little jar with the number to indicate the recommended shelf life, so I have no idea how long this lasts, but typically Dior products don't last long. Like, they are known to just have a 6-month expiration date on average, although the natural matte filter powder has 12 months. Yay! I forgot to mention that this powder is made in Italy, but the soft filter blush is made in France, and it does have fragrance. Just want to let you know, this is how I've been applying the soft filter blush. I just tap it here haphazardly, and you might be worried and say, oh my gosh, how is that going to work out? I follow up with my Sonia G mini buffer, and I know the immediate blurring effect that it has, the ease of blend and application. I was shocked by it, actually. And I think this is probably more accessible to those who are weary of cream blush products or even liquid ones, because they feel that they're not easily applied. But this texture is forgiving and can be layered for more color intensity. So you saw that first layer was like my default blush color, and I could pounce on a second layer and kind of build up the color from there. And it just has a beautiful effect on my complexion. Orchid, if you're my skin tone, Orchid is a must, in my opinion, especially if you tend to gravitate towards the warmer peachy tones that I think are just lovely standalone. And what I love to do also, and I did in the shorter demo, is that I tapped Orchid on my lids. So you can create that beautiful monochromatic like blush drape effect from eyes to cheeks. And but the texture is phenomenal. It's soft, but it's not drying or flat. Even though it's developed to have like a filtering effect on the skin, it's not going to look heavy or textured when applied. So let's follow up with Peony. And when you see Peony, you're like, Alicia, why did you get that color? I'm a sucker for like muted roses, and I was actually surprised at how this shows up when blended, because it looks quite cool tone and muted from the bottle, but when you apply it and blend it out, it actually has a little more of a rose, kind of rose element to it, and not just cool mauve. And I think it's so pretty. It has more of like a whimsical feel about it. Like, this is a shade I would wear instantly with Anastasia's Nouveau, or even Visior's Paris Mattes, or Lilas, right? Because yes, it has like a cooler tone about it, but I think that pink mauve surprised me. Yes, this is better for my skin tone, and it's probably be the crowd favorite, Orchid. But Peony ain't bad, because if you're my skin tone and you tend to like these types of shades, I think Peony will be beautiful. I didn't try the others because, for instance, Bloom, like that bright coral. Because I already have VBB's color wash in coral, I didn't think it necessary to buy that shade. Although just based off what I've experienced with Orchid and Peony, I couldn't think less of it. I probably would just look gorgeous, but a lot more vibrant and bright on the cheeks. The blush soft filter is just phenomenal in terms of performance. You see how easy it is to apply. I love that it's an doe foot applicator where you could just pounce it directly on your cheeks and follow up with either a finger blend or a brush. Now, I like to use a brush because I think it's a little more even in the application, but if you want it, you most certainly can tap with your fingers, and I think you'll have just a fine time blending out this texture. But it is moussey, it's whipped, it's lightweight. It is a joy to apply, and the fact that it is more of like a soft matte finish, but doesn't look too dull on the skin. Although I think this does perform better on either my Givenchy, I would say my Prada Beauty foundation, versus this being applied on an already soft matte surface. Like matte on matte could get a little much for me, and why I rather mix finishes so I could arrive at like a balanced state with both products. But this ain't bad. I think I demonstrated how easy it is to apply. And again, if you're wondering about the colors, if I were to pick between the two, definitely Orchid, but you probably, like myself, are waiting for Oud, because Oud would just, oh my gosh, a little more color rich just by default based on how it looks online. And it'll just be incredible. What else can I say? Now let's head over to the more limited edition pieces of the Miss Dior Fall 2025 collection, specifically the lipstick shade and the case. So you have 3 cases that arrive in what's called here Wild Beige, Shocking Pink, or Bold Black, I believe. Now, when I first saw this release, I immediately thought of the Louis Vuitton and Steven Sprouse collaboration that released back in 2001, merging street style graffiti font with the couture sensibility and style when it's layered on the classic LV monogram pattern. I think that was one of the most sought after and hailed collaborations in the luxury beauty space. And I think this collection tried to establish something similar where you're mixing like graffiti street style with couture. What do you get? You get pouches that say Miss Dior in this graffiti style font. I'm a sucker for that because I love when collaborations between art forms in that manner happen. And I think it's great that you can just get the case separately if you already have the Hydrating Shine lipstick. And we have 3 limited edition shades, specifically 790 Bold Black, which I have, 976 B Dior, a vibrant fuchsia, and 100 Nude Look, a contemporary nude. I had to go with Bold Black because these types of like, it looks dark on the bullet but applies more transparent, it's described to be a deep purple, but I would say this is like a true blackberry shade, and it has a little bit of sparkle. I don't know if you can see it on camera. The slip and silkiness of this lipstick, I don't think I've ever tried a Hydrating Shine lipstick from Dior. Is phenomenal. I just love how it applies, and I'm happy I went with the Wild Beige case because between the fuchsia and black colors in the lipstick case construction, I think this is the prettiest in my opinion. The Dior Addict Hydrating Shine lipstick, let me just grab a few details here from the box. Made in France. I don't have the suggested shelf life, but I'm assuming at most 12 months because it's Dior. Maybe 6. Now, people immediately brought up Black Honey from Clinique. Conceptually, they are similar. Again, because the bullet looks super dark, but when you apply it, it's more of a translucent color. Black Honey is more like dark cherry. It has a distinctly more reddish tone to it. This has more of like a blackberry hue, which in my opinion is more flattering. There's like an earthiness to it as well. And I wanted to compare this shade with a limited edition Hermès lipstick from their Shine lipstick lineup, number 90 Brilliant Prune Noir. This is how the bullet looks like, okay, taking on a similar setup, but this has a little more like plumish in there. See how earthy it makes the Dior look next to it? I think Black Honey is more red than the Hermès. The Hermès is a little more like wine, where again the Dior is more of like a blackberry. I think it's so pretty. I can't get over this lipstick. I can't get over how beautiful it looks despite the shade. It just goes well with everything. And I could throw this on solo with a little bit of blush thrown on the cheeks and even no mascara, maybe brow, fluffed up with the gel. And this lipstick, come on, I think is absolutely gorgeous. Yes, you do have to pay separately for the case, and then you have to pay separately for the lipstick. If you don't think that's worth your purchase, that is entirely up to you. But I'm a sucker for packaging. I love Dior cosmetics. I know not everything is a hit, and I have my favorites. But this lipstick, I can't get over the color, the feel, the experience. It has a little bit of a berry taste to it, teetering on medicinal. So if you're not crazy about berry, medicinal, anything, this will probably just taste like Dimetapp to you. Or Robitussin if you really don't like this type of a taste profile. I don't mind it because it's not as flowery as your Hermès lipstick. So in my opinion, more tolerable. But oh my goodness, this is pretty. It's pretty. And I think you'll discover the difference when, especially if you have Black Honey, and you don't have to buy this to compare. You could bring Black Honey with you somewhere that has Bold Black as a tester. Swatch it and you'll probably see for yourself the difference in the tone. And again, I love it. Keeper. And now we've arrived at these eyeshadows. Okay, so yes, the pouch, how dare Dior charge $85 for a canvas lined printed little pouch. Listen, this was my choice as a consumer. I decided to participate. I go back and forth with if I rather had Dior printed Miss Dior on the actual compact versus the pouch, or both. The pouch you could use over and over again, and you could take this fall collection with you and use it with any of your Dior quints. So I can see why they decided that be the more practical route to take in showcasing the style of this collaboration. Wild Beige I have, as you saw, as well as Bold Black. And some quick details here. Limited edition for not only these that you see here, but Shocking Pink and one that released after. It's like a lilac with the Shocking Pink backdrop, but the white graffiti font on top. I don't know if that's a European exclusive or if it'll ever find its way overseas to the US. I know it wasn't at the boutique, so probably not in the US yet if it's on the way. 6 months suggested shelf life for the shadows. I expected that. It's fine. Made in France, and here is 664 Wild Beige. You can see that the Miss Dior font is embossed on the powders, and I'm not super well versed in Dior shadows, meaning I don't have each and every release. I can only explain the differences I see between the ones that I own, and that's why I have New Look on standby. Still in its box, this is the 5 Color Couture palette, $5.99 before the reformulation. Okay, so we're looking at a different compact. Before you had the CD logo clasp, but this one you have the press clasp here, and this is in New Look. My opinion, this formula before the change was peak Dior quality. Compared to the Miss Dior release, I think the Miss Dior release is fine. It's not earth-shattering. And I was actually surprised when swatching these in person because I thought this was a matte. Both these were mattes. These are actually satins, and you have the two what I consider sparklers. And I say sparklers because when seen under a hard light, they do have a lovely glimmer effect. They're a little drier though than, let's say, what's found in the older palettes. And I could quickly swatch Wild Beige for you. Let me swatch first the ivory shade that has like a bit of a gold flip in there. Is hard to see. I know it appears quite icy, but this quite different from the one found in Bold Black. This is the copper sparkler, and I thought that had nice adherence and in general beautiful shine. The middle shade is almost like an iridescent, so it's a beige base with a light, and I'm talking light pink flip in there. The next satin is this soft rose, which is lovely solo all over the lid if you wanted to apply it there. And lastly, we have this cocoa brown, probably lighter than a cocoa brown matte shadow that's soft, easy to blend, easy to apply. So I thought these were quite pretty. And especially if, okay, let me do this for you back of hand. If you work the sparkle shade and you saw there's a little bit of fallout there, so make sure you don't pick up so much. It has, I think, nice reflectivity. The key is that you can't pick up too much because it can be a little powdery on the application and you could experience some fallout in the cheeks. So make sure you go in with the appropriate primer. And I would think a finger application is ideal because the warmth from your finger will ensure that those pigments press well into the lids and not have any dangles, if you will. Versus a brush, you might risk picking up too much and then having fallout thereafter. But if I were to quickly compare this to, let's say, this shade from New Look, see how much more shine you get and see how much, in my opinion, better. It's just a creamier formula, and I think better pickup in general and easier to deal with. It's so pretty, and I'm kicking myself, I am, for not having more of these quints. I think they're some of Dior's best, and when they released these years ago, the colorways just spoke to me. I think I might have 2 more in this formulation, but ooh, I'm happy I have the 3 that I have, thank goodness. So let's go into bold black. You see you have the black background with the white Miss Dior graffiti style font on there. Compact, looks the same. This was actually the first one I wanted to buy. I don't know, this mint spoke to me, and I thought it was an interesting color choice to have with the smoky glam palette. And surprised and delighted to find out that this was actually a satin and not a matte. So let's go over these 2, what I call, again, I think Dior refers to these as the pearl finishes, but this is more like a rose gold. Again, really nice sparkle there. This is more of like an icy with a light blue flip. So a lot cooler than the one found in Wild Beige. These 2 here, I'll first go in with the lighter beige. Great on its own, all over the lid or even on the inner corner. The mint, fantastic for highlight. So if you just wanted something different as a highlight effect on the inner corner, great way to go. And the black matte right in the center. Diffuse lash line, blend it out on the outer V. You could do a lot with this quad. And again, I couldn't stay away from Wild Beige just because it's so soft and simple to deal with. But to have the more glam palette here at my disposal, the ideas just started to emerge and brew. And I wanted to now begin the demo with you and again, give you just another example of how these shadows work, how they perform. If you're wondering about comparisons with the older Dior quad, I could do a little more here. Compared to, like, let's say these finishes, my goodness, look at that. I don't know if Dior will ever develop something like this again. I don't know. I don't know. And I also am unable to compare the Miss Dior release to the previous one. My apologies, my camera was overheating. I had to stop and I forgot what I was saying. I think I was talking about comparison swatches and such, how grateful to have the older quints. So let's take it from there. I applied my Suku eye primer. I wanted to first demonstrate with Wild Beige. And also you could see how the Hydrating Shine Lipstick wears. Is not long wearing because it is shiny. It's not a lot of color from the gate, but I do like the tint it leaves behind. And when it starts to wear, it doesn't feel sticky or it doesn't ask for more lipstick. My lips feel quite soft and I like the effect the formula has on them. What I usually like to do is first go in with one of the sparkly Arcleys first. Well, actually, I like to go in one of the satins. And yes, I know not everyone is into a finger application, but I think this is one of the best approaches in handling these textures to get, again, that nice color payoff, but with the soft shine effect. And with these satins, I think they're, again, lovely on the lid. They're soft. They are forgiving with multiple textures. And how I like to use the pearl finishes is to just pick up a light amount and then tap to layer on the actual satin, and that will leave behind more of a glimmer effect on the lid. So you could go that route. You could also apply the more copper shade, let's say on the outer part of the lid, so you have more of like that soft ivory to copper gradient, or I guess you could say more copper bronze. So that's one way to go. If you wanted to follow up with the light rose shade, I can apply that on the inner corner instead of maybe having that on the entire lid. Just carefully tossing it here, not only on the inner corner, but bringing it through the inner arc. Now we could do several things with the soft brown, right? I can tap it along the lash line here if I wanted to create a soft diffused effect on my lash line, or if I wanted a little more smoke, smoke in a soft way, I'll grab with a larger brush, that brown matte, and lightly tap on the outer V. And the mattes are quite soft and I feel easy to blend and deal with. And they don't have so much pigment that I feel you would be intimidated by the texture. I think it's quite easy to work with. And a reason why I can't help but purchase these palettes, because the ease of use and just their straightforward design is what makes it appealing to me. I don't have to think, I don't have to try so hard, and I don't mind just having that softer effect on the eyes. It doesn't have to be super dazzling all the time, but if I wanted to be dazzling, I could just grab one of my Danessa Color Fix sticks, apply either the metallic or foiled on the lid, and maybe follow up with the matte or follow up with the softer satin shades. Like, there are several ways we can go, you know what I mean? I think this is where your items intersect, that you don't have to use your favorites exclusively, that this is where the fun begins when you start merging them together. So that is Wild Beige. Again, you can see a little bit of that shine and gleam on top of the satin, and this is where we'll move into bold black. Now, if you're wondering how you can approach this in a more daily fashion, I would immediately go in with the satin shade first, and just so you can see how that performs with a brush application, I'm going to tap it along my lid, and you have more of like an ivory sheen versus more of like a warm beige from Wild Beige. So many beiges. I'm tapping that lightly across the lid and want to follow up now with this more rose gold sparkler shade. So I'm tapping to layer across the lid, and now you have a really nice sparkle effect there. Following up with the mint. I think the mint is lovely as an inner corner highlight moment. It just adds a little bit of pizzazz, and it's a surprise shade, but it works incredibly well in my opinion as highlight for the inner corner. Now, this is where you could stop. Maybe you dip out and apply like a softer color on the outer V if you wish to smoke it out. But what I like to do is take a little bit of the black and start to stamp it along the lash line to create a little more thickness here, especially if you want to follow up with mascara or even apply some falsies, because that's going to give the lash line a little more definition, and I think will lend a thicker look to your lashes because the base has the shadow here. But if you wanted to toss on a little more of the black to create a more distinct smoky look, and follow up with the same brush I applied the brown matte with. And this is the thing with the matte texture here. You don't have to over manipulate. You could softly just tap the color on the outer lid and use the tapping motion to diffuse the shadows, and they'll naturally fall into that diffused effect. You don't have to overblend or use harsh circular motions. This is why I probably would suggest you pick up a soft brush so the powder can lay down on the shadows and not look disruptive, splotchy, uneven. And there you go. So when applying, this black shadow takes more of like a charcoal look to the eyes, which I like because that lends a softer look overall. But if you wanted a distinct, more black serving of matte, you probably will have to go in solo with the matte first so that the other shades don't interfere with that finish. I'm just following up here with some of the black matte on the lower lash line. and refining that application, just getting into the creases here. So let's apply the lashes, a little more lipstick, and I'll be back with the close-ups. So here are the close-ups from our final looks using Wild Beige and Bold Black from the Miss Dior Fall 2025 release. Again, I didn't buy these in thinking I was going to be completely mind blown by the formula. I knew what I was getting myself into. I purchased these products as a beauty enthusiast, and probably more specifically a luxe beauty enthusiast. I wanted to partake in this release because I love the collaboration with the art designs. I know it's not the end all or be all. I understand how expensive they are for one quint, just for the canvas pouch, and you have to pay extra for the limited edition case. And I forgot to mention, there were also the matte formula, the matte finishes, the velvet one specifically, shocking pink, rosewood, and nude look if you were interested in those, with the Miss Dior embossing on the actual bullet. And of course the nail polishes that I'm sure are fine, but I have plenty of nail polish, okay? Back to what I actually purchased. I think the natural matte powder is solid, especially if you were looking for something to be more of a traditional pressed powder that's not found in the Prada Beauty or Givenchy formulas. That I think you would like this lay down in terms of being silky soft and lightweight, and definitely delivers that filtered blurring effect on the skin. These blushes are phenomenal in my opinion. I know they have fragrance and they probably have a short shelf life, even though I wasn't able to find it, not even on the box. I do enjoy the color lineup, and most importantly, or more pointedly, the texture. This soft moussey texture that is just unbelievably easy to use, to apply, to blend out. And my favorite definitely is Orchid, because this warm peach shade is just what again, some of you has said, and what I agree with, the default shades that you could just throw on with your eyes closed and know it's going to look fine. That doesn't warrant more makeup, that just kind of lifts your complexion with a little bit barely there, but just enough color. And with Peony, sure, I could have left Peony behind, but I do like its role in delivering that softer pink effect on the face that could be paired with, like, again, the Lilas palettes, the Paris mattes, and all those lighter fluttery shades from my eyeshadow collection. And the lipstick I have to say has to be, besides the blush, my favorite product out of the entire purchase that I did, because I just can't get over how easy the shade is to wear, how good it feels on the lips, and the color, the tone, they just nailed. Again, I know there are several on the market, not just from mid-tier brands, but indie brands and other luxury brands, as you saw from the Hermès with the dark lipstick bullet, but looks entirely different on the application, that does not have any pH changing properties, right? This is what the color that you'll get. It's extraordinary. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Prada Beauty has something cooking up in the lab with a similar lipstick concept, which will be interesting to see what route they would go. If they would go more cool, more warm, in between, right? Because we already have the blackberry, we have like what's more like a grape, and then of course black honey is more like that red cherry. I guess Prada Beauty would go super cool if they developed a shade like this. Ooh, I would love to see it. I know Givenchy has like a hybrid lip serum product that looks like black and white in the vial, but when you apply it, it looks something like this. But that stings, like, it has like that lip plumping property that I'm not crazy about, and neither does the Dior Shine Lipstick. So that's why I'm happy with this product. And for the palettes, listen, it's more so that if I'm traveling, like I'm leaving tomorrow, I'm on a flight tomorrow, I don't need a lot of bandwidth to pack, and I just need the little Quint to give me a soft eye, which to the normal person's eye, through their lens, is going to look beautiful. Like, if they don't know what else exists out there in the makeup world, what other more sparkly finishes, like if they don't know about the Danessas and the Cleonas of the world, they will think this is fabulous. And that's all I need. I just need something to bring it all together, a classic eye look that's elegant, easy to achieve, and it's not going to be heavy in the suitcase, okay? That I could bring along on the carry-on, in the carry-on. Like, I'm not here to pack 1,000 different eyeshadow palettes. I just need something that's reliable, okay? Even with the drier texture, even with the fallout, I could work with it. I could work with this texture right here. In my opinion, actually, I think the bold black shiny shades are a little shinier than the ones found in Wild Beige. And I guess the question is Alicia gonna get shocking pink? Out of curiosity, I would love to try Shocking Pink because I think one of the shades can just be worn solo all over the lid. We'll see, family, we'll see. But again, I think these have a little more sparkle than the ones found in Wild Beige, but I don't mind because it's actually nice to have a little bit of like that light sparkle effect on the inner corner. I'm applying this shade again with a brush. I specifically like to place it here on the inner arc of the eye because then it has just a lovely twinkle effect that, sure, again, it's not blow your mind twinkle, but I do feel it has a lovely effect on the eye look in general because this, I feel, can be worn every day easily. And I could tone it down by omitting the application here of that brown matte on the outer lid and just keep it on the lash line for a softer look. But to know I can apply this on a larger range on my eye and it won't look out of control is fantastic. And bold black, I mean, you can't go wrong with the smoky eye. And if I were to compare this with the Noir palette from YSL, which has 4 shadows and not 5, I like this because you have like the silvery, icy sparkler here, but the inclusion of the mint and the beige and even this rose gold, I think balances it out a little bit, where it's not so like charcoal silvery smoky. It has a little bit more dimension in there with this color selection. So let me know if you picked up anything from the Miss Dior Fall 2025 collection, if you also have your eye on the Soft Filter blush or the Forever Blush Soft Filter shade. Definitely gonna get Oud. That is on the radar and I'll be on here immediately when I get my hands on it. But thank you so much for watching until the end. If you did, please click that like button. It helps me immensely in letting the YouTube algorithm know that I'm worth watching, and will recommend my videos to other beauty enthusiasts like yourself to watch as well. And consider subscribing, because what are you gonna do when I get Oud? How are you gonna know about it? You'll know about that upload immediately, especially when you click that notification bell when it drops. You'll know to watch it right away. And if it's your first time visiting the channel, please peruse, say some more, linger. I might see you in this video here. Definitely down below in the comments for this one. And on here again next time.